you ever beaten a liar in court? I beat my ex-husband at his own game during our divorce proceedings. My ex had taken my cash to pay for things throughout our marriage and was racking up credit cards in his name, which I didn't know about. So it looked like he had all the debt and I hadn't contributed financially. He intended to stick me with half of the credit card debt, which was a lot, $30K or more. I didn't even know about this until the day of court. And it was things that I had paid for to counter his credit card debt. I had the house note. I got an inspection at a realtor who gathered info as to what houses were selling for in my area. He also had an inspection. I knew he would try to say the house was worth more than it was. I had the realtor show up as a witness. This weighted more than his one inspection appraisal. He knew the realtor. He hated her because she was my friend. Her presence shook him up quite a bit and made him uneasy. I could see it. I didn't even count on this, so bonus for me. Plus, I had a written inspection myself. These two things counted as inspection. Next, I made a list of all the household things he took with him, which far outweighed the items that were left. I assigned monetary values to them. His assets far outweighed mine. Not only was his list more in value, but his list took up 2 pages. Mine took up 1/4 of a page. This alone created an image in the attorney's mind of how things were skewed. He claimed he wanted joint custody over and over. I knew this was for monetary reasons, to not pay child support. Otherwise, why not go for primary custody? So knowing this, during mediation, I finally said, if he insisted on joint custody, I would refuse it and give him primary custody. I would take weekends. I would be the fun parent. He could take off work every time the kid was sick and couldn't go to school every time our child had a day off school. And every summer he could find daycare all week. He would be responsible for homework, getting him to bed early and getting him to school every day. And then finding someone to pick him up from school and watch him until my ex got home from work from 3 to 5, Monday through Friday. Well, he hadn't thought about all that. Once I put my foot down in mediation and said I either got primary custody or he did, and I wouldn't budge. Within a week, I got a letter from his attorney. He had conceded to me having primary custody. At first, they tried to call my bluff. Even the mediator looked at me in horror and said, "You wouldn't give up your son. You love him too much." I said, exactly. I do love him too much. How can I get along with this man I'm divorcing to joint raise a son? We have completely different parenting styles. If I could get along with him to co-raise my son, we would still be married. I love my son enough to know that going back and forth year, going between 2 households, and raising a son in 2 different ways is much worse for him than letting him be raised by his dad. So if he feels that strongly to raise him, then I concede. He can raise him and I will take the fun weekends, running around to Chuck E. Cheese and amusement parks, staying up late, sleeping in with our pajamas on all morning. That sounds good to me. They were speechless. They knew I meant it, and I did. But then, my ex wasn't physically aggressive to our child, so I could risk this, the slight possibility that I was wrong, and he would go for the primary custody. In court, I used every question to highlight his cruelty. When asked for receipts, I said, "You took them when you left me with no warning. You emptied the house, even took the bed." He rarely denied it, and when he did, I'd say, "You're lying to my face? I guess you really don't care anything about me." I painted him as selfish and mean. His own lawyer saw how bad he looked and urged him to settle. He protested, but she said, "Take the deal. It's your best option." In the end, I won. He had to pay me, and I kept our son. Standing up to him was hard, but worth it.